Yo, what's up, y'all? It's MMA Analyst here to do a topic. You know what? I don't know what to call these videos. I just do everything off the top of the head, and then I'm in the middle of a sentence, and I don't really know how I'm going to finish it. So I'll just say what this is all about. This video is going to be an announcement of the second UFC prediction contest sponsored by countrymansfist.com. And I'm also going to talk about BJ Penn. Let me adjust my seat and make everything crack a little for a bit. All right. I was going to talk about the lightweight division as a whole, not just the UFC lightweight division, but you know, the entire mixed martial arts lightweight division and the top guys in America and around the world. But I figured I'll leave that for another time, probably about a week from now. I'm going to get something rolling, and I figure that'll be a good topic for me and somebody else to discuss, or somebody else and I try and be, you know, proper with the grammar. Anyways, let's get down to it. Enough with the foolishness. So let's see here, folks. The whole competition was to decipher or to predict exactly when James Toney would lose. How many seconds, how many minutes, how many rounds. That's really what the focus was. I made it pretty clear in the video. You had to let me know the round, the winner, the exact time within that round, and then also I also mentioned the method, but the method was least important. So the would-be winner was Mobius Kane. He said Randy Couture by pentagram choke. Mad props for mentioning one ridiculous ass choke that nobody's pulling off in MMA at 3:15. Now he actually would have been a tie for the winner. Actually, he would have won with 4 seconds off. The official time was 3:19 of the first round, but unfortunately, Mobius Coin didn't say what round, so that sucks. We had Rambo Baby Jesus, who said Couture by TKO round 1, 3 minutes 25 seconds. That's big. That's big, but not the winner. We only had 2 guys who said the correct method, which was arm triangle or side choke. That was Randy Couture, 3:45 of round 1, arm triangle choke. Mark WGTS, good pick, but just not close enough. We also had Homicide 925. He said 2:30 into the first round by side choke. These are some pretty close picks. We had Snipe Miser, who said 3:21 by armbar, Randy Couture first round. And now we're down to our final 3. Actually, we're really only down to final 2. Actually, Ronald's Sulks actually had 3:16, but he said at the second round, so he would have won if he would have just kept the right round, because everybody knew this wasn't going past the first. So what I'm going to actually try and do is I'm going to contact the guys over at Countryman's Fist and see what's going on here, because I had actually told somebody that they were the winner without realizing that they actually weren't the winner. That somebody was Bobo527. He said first round 3 minutes 12 seconds rear naked choke. So I'm like, yo man, you won, congratulations. But then I looked closer and Monsters won. Actually, the number 1, he won, WON, with a prediction of 3 minutes and 24 seconds in round 1, which is exactly 5 seconds off from the official time. So congratulations, Monsters. Bobo527, I already told you you won. I think I will be able to take care of this. Those guys are some good guys. Probably going to end up sending you a shirt as well. So congratulations. Look forward to having this type of competition again in the future. Now, damn, I took 4 minutes with that. Let's get down to BJ Penn. Okay? We're going to talk about BJ Penn against the other lightweights. And let me just start off by saying BJ Penn is probably the best lightweight of all time. He's just come off 2 losses to Frankie Edgar, and he didn't show that he was ready, and he didn't show that he was focused enough to get the job done. And this is something where I think it's got to do all mentally with BJ Penn. Not that he's maybe mentally weak, but maybe a combination of he is too proud. He has too much pride in him. He's made it very clear recently that he does not like the way these other fighters are fighting, and that they all are starting to look the same. And of course, he's talking about these hyper active wrestling machines with cardio for days that try and go win fights off points. And you've got a lot of guys in the lightweight division. You've got a couple, candidates at welterweight division. The bigger you get, the less you have that, because they're bigger and they don't have the ability to just go forever like these smaller guys. But the lightweight division is filled with small, compact, fast, explosive wrestlers who win by decision and appear to only want to get the win and are not interested in finishing the fights. And BJ Penn hates this. And he's made it clear that he doesn't like it, and that it looks boring, and that it is boring, and that he's not impressed with these types of fighters. And BJ Penn has also got this thing in his mind where he's proud of how he fights, how he finishes fights, how he doesn't look like all these other guys who are not as naturally gifted as him, not as physically naturally built like he is. These guys like Frankie Edgar, who have to work probably 10 times as hard as BJ Penn would have to work to get as good as he is. And I think that this has been, it's kind of too late to preface this, but let me say off the bat something that's very obvious. This is just my opinion off of my observations, and I'm no kind of psychiatrist or psychologist or whatever one works in this situation. We already all knew this, but sometimes you got to mention things to people who are going to be like, how do you know this? Well, I don't, but this is what I'm thinking. So what you end up having is BJ Penn going out against Frankie Edgar in his first fight, and in the past going out in fights and maybe not being 100% ready, and then he has some type of excuse, or his fans have some type of excuse, and most people believe it because they recognize BJ Penn's better than what we saw, so something must be wrong. And then for the first time in his career, we see him come out to the exact same, like he gets a chance for instant redemption. The UFC says, yo, that's not BJ Penn. That's not the BJ Penn. That's not the prodigy. That's not the greatest lightweight of all time. We need to give him another shot to show everybody what he can really do. And I think what BJ Penn does is he goes back to the drawing board. He does the exact same thing. He trains as much as he wants to train. He trains where he wants to train. And it's not at the level that any of these other top guys are training at. And for a long time, he didn't have to train like these other guys had to train. And what ends up happening is he ends up being outworked back-to-back by Frankie Edgar. Somebody who is, not as good a striker as BJ Penn, if BJ Penn actually is ready to strike for 25 minutes. Who's not as good on the ground as BJ Penn, if BJ Penn is able to physically exert that much energy, the kind of energy it takes, for 25 minutes. But BJ Penn's not ready to do that because BJ Penn didn't train to do this, because BJ Penn doesn't feel like he needs to train to do this. So what you end up having is somebody who is so proud, and I don't want to say egotistical because that just sounds bad, but there's definitely ego involved in this. I mean, anybody who's a fighter who thinks that they can be the best in the world, there has to be some type of ego so that they can actually go out there and fight other people. A lot of times guys who are better than them and think that they can win it and sometimes actually pull it off. So you've got a guy like BJ Penn who, if he actually put in the work, probably would be unbeatable if he would have the kind of work ethic that guys like Frankie Edgar clearly has, guys like GSP, guys who are surrounded by people who are building them up and who make them fear their opponents. When Georges St-Pierre goes out there to fight against anybody, let's just talk about Dan Hardy. He doesn't say things like, Dan Hardy's a bum. He has no wrestling. He's from the UK. I'm one of the best wrestlers for MMA. Yo, I just got back from jiu-jitsu and stuff. I'm still sweating. I'm one of the best, wrestlers when it comes to wrestling for MMA. He has no shot against me. And pretty much, I'm just going to take him down over and over again, and I'm going to put a good beating on him. That's reality. But that's not what he says. Georges St-Pierre says, this is going to be the toughest fight of my career. He's going to be very, very worthy opponent, and I'm training my ass off. And he's not lying about 2 of 3 of those. He is training his ass off, and maybe 1 of 3. It's not going to be the toughest fight of his career. And maybe he is a worthy opponent. But it doesn't matter because GSP believes these things, and his corner ingrained this into him, and his training partners and his coach, they all let him know, BJ, you can be, Georges St-Pierre, you can be beat. You are not the greatest. You have to work hard. You have to work faster and stronger and longer than all these other guys. That's like, like in boxing with, these guys like Floyd Mayweather Jr. and Manny Pacquiao, these guys that train nonstop. They train to be the best because they know in order to be the best, they have to be training when these other guys are sleeping. And that's how you become the best. You don't become the best because you are the best. You become the best because you work harder than all the other guys. And also you could put that together with some talent. But what do we have with BJ Penn? BJ Penn's corner is yelling out, get that cocksucker in the middle of the fight. How is that going to help you win the fight? That's not strategical. Take off the O. That's not strategic. There's no kind of anything in that except for, condescending and degrading words about the opponent that obviously the corner, training camp, and BJ himself believe is not on his level. And there's more things, little subtle things that you see. You're in the 5th round. You're about to lose your 2nd fight to the same guy. And Frankie Edgar catches BJ Penn's foot. And BJ Penn just kind of flicks his foot up away and gets his foot back in a way that nobody else can do. If Chael Sonnen gets his leg caught, he's got to turn and do a barrel roll. If other guys get caught, they're going to get taken down. But BJ Penn, he gets his foot caught in the 5th round, as tired as he's ever been. And what's he do? He just kicks his foot out and kind of shrugs his shoulders like, dude, even if you beat me, you're still not on my level. And that's the reason why BJ Penn has 2 losses back-to-back in 2010. And that's the reason why he probably lost that first fight to Georges St-Pierre. And, he probably lost to Cheetah because he was outweighed by 20 pounds and shouldn't be fighting at 191 anyways. But the point is, BJ Penn doesn't have that drive, that dedication, the ability to say, I'm going to train harder than the rest of these dudes. I'm going to go out there and come out with a game plan to win. And that's the reason why BJ Penn is sitting in a situation now where I don't know if he's going to fight again. And if he does fight again, he's probably going to fight Takanori Gomi. If the UFC makes this anything realistic, which often they don't, he shouldn't just beat Gomi to get a title shot again. So he should have to beat Gomi and then beat somebody else. And for the most part in the UFC lightweight division, he can beat guys like Kenny Florian, most likely with just his limited training partners, training camp, training hours, and that's not disrespect to Kenny Florian, but that's just because BJ Penn actually is that good. But when you have somebody that's training harder than everybody else, like Frankie Edgar, or you know what I mean, it's just a situation where you got to step it up. GSP, you got to step it up, and he doesn't have that in him. So when I think about the lightweight division, and I say, man, I liked it when BJ Penn was the top guy, it's because BJ Penn really is the most talented guy. He's the guy that can actually go out and finish fights. He's the guy that can stuff all these wrestlers' takedowns. He's the guy who can go submit people and knock people out and do it with, relative ease. That's why I like BJ Penn at the top, because he's the prodigy, jiu-jitsu-wise. But in MMA, we know he's not training as hard as the rest of these guys, and unfortunately, it's not working anymore. But that's the way it is. So now we have a situation where we have Frankie Edgar, who deserves all the credit in the world for training as hard as he needs to train. Maybe harder because, he's a small guy and he's supposed to be at 145 and all these other obstacles. So he's training harder than everybody else. He's improving vastly. His footwork is great. His head movement is great. He's moving around, nonstop. He's doing the whole GSP thing. Am I going to take you down? Am I going to strike? Am I going to kick? When we clinch, I'm going to punch you on the way out. I'm going to do something. I'm never going to stop moving. And that's what we've got a guy like Frankie Edgar doing. And he has to do that to be where he is. Because if he doesn't, he just isn't going to win against these top guys. So he knows that. I don't know how much I've been repeating myself. But if BJ Penn goes out there ready to go for takedowns and stuff takedowns and strike and move, if he is physically prepared, like George St. Pierre gets physically prepared for his fights, or like Frankie Edgar gets prepared for his fights, he does not lose ever at lightweight, ever. But obviously he's now has 3 losses at lightweight, and 2 of them in 2010. The legacy that he wanted to create, 15-7, this is MMA. You're lucky it's not another sport, but 15-7 with losing 2 times in 2010, that's not the legacy he wanted. And I don't think that he's going to ever come back from this. I don't think he's ever going to put in that kind of work he needs to put in. If he couldn't put the work in for redemption within a few months of his biggest loss of his career, this is not against this is not against a welterweight called George St. Pierre. It's not against Matt Hughes. It's not against Lyoto Machida. It's not his 4th fight in MMA against Jens Pulver. This is years after he started fighting against somebody who nobody thought had a chance to beat him. He loses in a close fight where most people think he won, and then he comes out in the second fight and looks no different than the first, and the other guy, Frankie Edgar, steps it up and looks 100 times better and destroys him. If he can't get fired up for that rematch, how can he get fired up to go out there and, not be the main event and, to fight for number 4 spot? So that's what I think. I don't know if I ranted for too long, but I did what I did. Congrats again to, I think it was, what's my man's thing here? Congrats again to Monsters1 and Bobo527. MMA, y'all. It's important. Peace.